Hello and welcome to this week's Sweet Upload. In this video we'll be discussing the key points to Biscuit Method and using this method to prepare buttermilk biscuits. This recipe is great served many different ways, including with breakfast sandwiches or topped with gravy, or simply spread your favorite jam on them and enjoy. Let's talk about the procedure and key points when using Biscuit Method to mix a product. Biscuit Method can be thought of in 3 simple steps. First, cut in the cold, solid fat into the dry ingredients to the desired size. Next, add very cold liquid to the mixture. Finally, mix only to hydrate the dry ingredients. Do not overmix. Sounds simple enough, right? That's because it is if you understand and focus on these key points. In Biscuit Method, it's very important to have the ingredients cold. This is discussed in detail in the Mixing Method video linked here. Be sure to check out that video to get a complete overview of basic mixing methods. The first step in Biscuit Method is cutting in the fat. Depending on the product, fat is cut into different sizes to determine the texture of the final product. Be sure to avoid over-cutting in the fat. This could begin to melt the fat and cause the liquid not to be absorbed by the dry ingredients. In today's recipe, we will be cutting in the fat to about the size of peas. This will help achieve a flaky texture in the biscuits. Whatever liquid is used in your product, it's important that it's very cold. This is to prevent the fat from increasing in temperature and possibly melting. After adding the cold liquid to the fat and flour mixture, mix only to hydrate the dry ingredients. The dough will remain shaggy or not smooth. Overmixing the dough will develop gluten and give your product a harder and tougher texture, which is not desired for biscuits. As with every mixing method, remember these are basic guidelines and you'll have slight modifications depending on the product being made. Here's our buttermilk biscuit recipe that can be found in the video description. There is also a link to download a PDF copy. Let's take a look at our ingredients and make some biscuits together. Here we have AP flour, baking powder, salt, sugar, buttermilk, and cold butter. We'll start by sifting together all of the dry ingredients. If sifting into a bowl is seen here, be sure the bowl is big enough to accommodate all of the ingredients. Next, we'll add our cold cubed butter. Cutting the butter into cubes beforehand will allow for the cut-in process to occur quickly so the fat does not begin to melt. Remember, the process of cutting in fat and flour can be done with a pastry blender as seen here. It may also be done with a mixer, with a fork, or even by hand. It's always a good idea to finish the cut-in process with hands no matter which tool you use to begin the process. This way you can touch and feel the fat to truly assess if it's been cut into the desired size. After the fat has been cut into pea-sized pieces, we're ready to add the cold buttermilk all at once. From here, mix the ingredients together until all the dry ingredients are hydrated, but don't mix any further. Remember, we need the dough shaggy with minimal gluten development. Continue to mix by hand as the dry ingredients begin to hydrate, but be certain not to overmix once the liquid has been absorbed. Once the dry ingredients have been hydrated, Gently press and fold the dough approximately 5 times to ensure you have a cohesive dough mass. Be sure to scrape the work surface before beginning to roll the dough. Any small particles on the surface could encourage the dough to stick while rolling. We're now ready to roll the biscuit dough. Evenly flour the work surface with bread flour. A light coating is all that's necessary to prevent the dough from sticking. Start by pressing the dough flat by hand and squaring the dough with a bench scraper if necessary. Working with an even, square dough will make rolling easier and more consistent. Don't be afraid to make adjustments. Focus on what you're doing and adjust as needed. If the dough is sticking and needs more dusting flour, add some sparingly. If the table needs to be scraped or if there's dough on the rolling pin causing the sticking, your complete focus is needed to be aware of such things. Ensuring that the dough is not sticking to the work surface, continue to roll it evenly to about a 3/4 to 1 inch thickness. Once the dough is rolled out to the proper thickness, we'll cut the dough into the desired shape. Today we'll use a 2.5 inch round cutter. Lightly dip the cutter into dusting flour to prevent sticking. Press the cutter firmly through the dough to make the cut. Avoid twisting, as this could potentially lead to the biscuit rising unevenly in the oven. It's also important to utilize as much dough as possible in making the cuts as close together as you can. Leftover scraps of biscuit dough won't make the best quality product, and you should avoid using them when selling product. To avoid waste in the home, the scrap dough may be pressed together and re-rolled. However, be aware that the re-rolled dough will not produce the same quality flaky biscuit because more gluten has developed when re-rolling. After evenly spacing the biscuits on the sheet pan, give them a light coating of milk or buttermilk. This will encourage browning of the product and also add a tangy note of flavor. The biscuits are now ready for the oven. We'll bake them in a 425-degree preheated oven for about 12 minutes. While they're in the oven, let's take a look at some possible flavor variations you could experiment with. While it's important that the amounts of the staple ingredients remain the same in the recipe, you could certainly enhance the flavor of the biscuits by adding your choice of herbs, spices, or other inclusions. Any desired combination of your favorite herbs and spices will do. For example, caramelized onion with rosemary and cheddar would be an excellent flavor combination. Let your imagination and creativity take you to new and exciting places. Be sure to let me know in the comments what flavor combinations you've made or that you're thinking about making. It looks like the biscuits are ready to come out of the oven. While they're still warm, brush some melted butter on top for a slight shine and added flavor. If you prefer a sweet note, brush the tops of the biscuits with honey butter. And there you have it, the key points to Biscuit Method to make buttermilk biscuits by hand. Thank you for watching, everybody. Let me know if you have any questions. For more baking lecture and tutorials, be sure to subscribe to the channel. As always, be well, be safe, and I'll see you next week for another sweet upload.